Right. Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a topic that couldn't be more divisive: homeopathy. It's a practice that inspires just incredible loyalty in millions of people, and at the same time, deep skepticism in others. Look, our goal here isn't to pick a side, but to really unpack the ideas behind it so you can get a handle on what all the fuss is about.
And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that complete split. You got these powerful personal stories of healing on one side, and then these profound, fundamental scientific questions on the other. That's the central conflict we're going to explore.
And to get a sense of the scale here, this isn't some tiny fringe practice we're talking about. I mean, get this. Homeopathy is the second most used system of medicine in the entire world. It's trusted by millions, especially in countries like India and Germany, and it's been spreading by word of mouth for over 200 years. So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at that central contradiction and its founding principles. Then, we're going to tackle the big one, the dilution dilemma. After that, we'll check out the questions for skeptics, see how it's all used in practice, and finally, think about its place in the world today. So, let's get stuck right into the core puzzle, this massive disconnect between what people say they feel and experience and what modern science can actually measure.
And this really lays out the two competing realities perfectly. So on one side, you have the user's experience, which is pretty straightforward. I felt ill, I took this remedy, and it worked. My symptoms eased. But then, on the other side, you've got the skeptic's view, which is rooted in material science. If we can't find a single molecule of the original stuff in there, how on earth could it possibly have an effect?
So, how did we even get here? Well, to figure that out, we've got to rewind the clock right back to the very beginning, to its founder and the big idea he came up with. So, picture this. It's the late 18th century, and a German doctor named Samuel Hahnemann is looking at the medical treatments of his day. We're talking things like bloodletting, and he just thought there has to be a better, gentler way. He was determined to find a more humane alternative. And this is the big idea he landed on, a principle he called like cures like. The basic concept is this. If a substance causes certain symptoms in a healthy person, like how chopping an onion makes your eyes water, then a tiny, specially prepared dose of that exact same substance could actually treat a condition where watery eyes are a key symptom. This idea is the absolute bedrock of all homeopathy. Okay, so we've got the core idea, but now we get to the bit that's, well, it's where things get really controversial. It's not just the principle, but how the remedies are actually made that is both completely unique and the source of most of the scientific debate. It's all done through a process called potentization, and it's basically a two-step dance repeated over and over again. First, the original substance gets diluted. Then, at every single stage of dilution, the mixture is shaken, and I mean really, really hard. That shaking process is called succussion. And this is where you have to take a bit of a leap from standard chemistry, because the belief here isn't that it's a chemical reaction. The theory is that the vigorous shaking actually imprints some kind of energetic signature, a pattern of the original substance, onto the water itself. It's a concept that operates outside the usual rules of chemistry. And this number, 12C, really shows you the heart of the scientific problem. A C potency means it's been diluted 1 part to 100. So a 12C potency means that's been done 12 times. By this point, you are way past what scientists call Avogadro's number, which basically means it's statistically almost impossible that even one single molecule of the original substance is left. And yet, this is a really common strength. So that massive dilution, that's the main sticking point for skeptics. But it also leads to some really clever questions from the other side, from the people who use and practice homeopathy. Okay, so the number one argument you'll hear from skeptics is, it's just the placebo effect, right? The idea that you feel better simply because you believe the treatment will work. But practitioners push back, and they ask a pretty compelling question. How does that explain remedies seemingly working on babies and animals who have no belief or expectation about what they're being given? And another thing they'll point out is this. If it's all just a placebo, why would different remedies, made from totally different substances, appear to produce such specific and different effects? In theory, a placebo should be a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. And one last point on this. If it was all just down to the power of belief, why have this complex system of different strengths or potencies? Why would a homeopath carefully choose a 30C over a 200C if the physical substance isn't there and only the patient's belief is what really matters?
All right, so let's park the theory for a minute and actually look at how these different remedies and potencies are used in the real world for everyday health issues. So, here are a few of the big hitters you might find in a homeopathic first aid kits. Arnica is the classic one for the shock and bruising after a fall or a knock. Then there's allium cepa, which is actually made from onion. And following that like cures like idea, it's used for hay fever when you have that streaming nose and watery eyes, just like when you're chopping an onion. And chamomilla is often the go-to for teething pain, especially in really irritable babies. And the strength they choose, the potency, isn't just picked out of a hat. There's a general rule of thumb. Lower potencies, like the 30C we just saw, are usually for more immediate physical complaints. A professional homeopath might choose much higher potencies for conditions that are more emotional or have been going on for a really long time.
So, what's the takeaway? Where does homeopathy actually fit into the bigger picture of healthcare today? Well, for its advocates, it plays a very specific role as a safe, complementary approach to health.
Maybe its biggest draw, the main selling point, is just how safe it's considered to be. Because the remedies are so incredibly diluted, they're seen as non-toxic and non-addictive. They don't usually interfere with conventional medicines, which means they're an option for just about everyone, from newborn babies to the elderly.
And this is a really important point. Proponents are very clear. This isn't about replacing your doctor or ignoring a serious diagnosis. It's seen as a complementary therapy, one that sees symptoms not as enemies to be crushed, but as the body's way of saying, hey, something's out of balance here and I need a little help.
And that really leaves us with this massive question, doesn't it? When what someone experiences in their own body, in their own life, diverges so sharply from what we can currently prove and measure in a laboratory, which one do we trust? It's a question with no easy answer, and it sits right at the very heart of this fascinating and very enduring debate.